Did you think you were going to survive that night, Michael?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm still going through pain right now. My whole face numb, my mouth hurting right now. As we speak.
A warning to our audience, this next segment contains descriptions and images of police violence. We turn now to Mississippi, where 6 white former police officers who called themselves the Goon Squad have pleaded guilty to raiding a home and torturing 2 black men earlier this year, after first trying to cover up their actions. Some of the officers face life in prison. On January 24th, court records show the deputies raided a home in Braxton, Mississippi, after a white neighbor of one of the officers called them to complain there were black men staying there. The officer texted the others, quote, "Are y'all available for a mission?" That night, without a warrant, the officers burst into the home, handcuffed, beat, tasered the 2 men, Michael Corey Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker. Also sexually abused them with a sex toy with shouting racial slurs. One of the officers put a gun in Jenkins' mouth for a mock execution and pulled the trigger. The bullet lacerated Jenkins' tongue, broke his jaw, exited through his neck. This is U.S. Attorney Darren LaMarca last week announcing federal charges against the former officers for the attack.
But not only did they brazenly commit these acts, but after inflicting serious bodily injury by firing a shot through one of the victim's mouths, they left him lying in a pool of blood. Gathered on the porch of the house to discuss how to cover it up. What indifference, what disregard for life.
The title says, Mississippi cops beat up 13 and 14-year-old sisters. Y'all probably wondering what any of this has to do with that. Y'all know patience is a virtue.
10 years old, sitting in the back of a Senatobia police cruiser. What could he have possibly done to wind up there?
I'm just speechless right now because, for one, I can't believe it happened. Like, why would you arrest a 10-year-old kid?
Questions tonight in Senatobia after a 10-year-old boy is arrested and taken to a police station.
Started shaking and thinking I'm going to jail.
Damn, Mississippi. Y'all still got that shit in y'all heart, man. I mean, damn. It look like Mississippi still burning. Shout out to Robert Hood, man. You put in that good cop work down there in Mississippi, man. We appreciate you. Salute from one American to the next. Mr. Sam Dobbins, where you at these days, sir? You were down there in Mississippi wild until they caught you. I'm not going to get too far in details about this cat, but if you haven't heard of him, you might want to look him up, man, because, I'm going to say something very, very, we'll go with provocative at the end of this video. And I think Mr. Dobbins is going to have some ties to what I'm going to say, Lord willing. So you might want to check homie out, man. Hell, we might talk a little bit about him, but in the video later on. But if you go down there to Rankin County, man, the white boys is off the chain and they freaky as hell. Like, we heard of cops doing all kind of crazy stuff, and I'm not trying to downplay any of this terror. But what does sex toys got to do with it, man? Y'all freaky as hell down there in Rankin County, man. And by now, you're still probably wondering what any of this has to do with Mississippi cops jumping on 13 and 14-year-old kids. I thought it was obvious. Same bird, same nest. Rankin County, Mississippi, Senatobia, Mississippi. Jump on 55 North, man. You there in 2.5 hours, depending on how you drive. Listen, they have a beautiful place, man, unless they just got technology making it look like that Pearl City or Pearl, Mississippi. Yo, I want to go. And then they also have this place. How in the hell did y'all trick those black people to get out there on that lake and it's named after? Was that Friday the 13th or Jason who had Crystal Lake? Hell, and if you check them out on Google, and you see like that's one of the tourist attractions. It's nothing but black people. I'm up there thinking, listen, man, y'all got these problems going on over here. You got a lake named after a well-known serial killer in his number. We usually don't do stuff like that. Let me get back to the damn point. I do want to visit Pearl City though. I'm gonna say something that I consider provocative at the end of this video. So even if you don't want to watch anymore, just fast forward to the end, check that out, and tell me what you think about it in the comments. Other than that, 1 + 1 = 2. What does any of that have to do with 2 little girls getting jumped on by grown-ass men? I said I thought it would be obvious, man.
Why my kids? It could have been me, besides my kids. They children.
Kids arrested, and it was all, as you can see, caught on cell phone video. This is video of what one mom says are Senatobia police officers assaulting and arresting her 2 teenage girls yesterday. It happened just after the kids apparently got off the school bus on East Gilmore Street.
Tonight, Fox 13's Sierra Jordan speaks with that mother and shares the emotions running through that community.
This piece of paper in my hand is from the Senatobia Housing Authority. Anybody who is on this list are not allowed to be on the properties owned by them. Anybody standing on the properties across the street will be charged with trespassing. Now, I spoke to a mother and she told me her 2 teenage daughters got off the school bus and was walking on the other side of the road, but not on the properties. Yet police arrested and charged them with disorderly conduct and trespassing. Now that mother is calling for justice.
I really want my babies to come home so she can seek the right medical attention that she needs for her wrist.
It was a regular Tuesday afternoon for Shanicia Miller as she was waiting for her 2 teenage daughters, Alasia and Anaya, to get off the school bus. Miller says there was heavy police presence on East Gilmore Road for a shooting that happened in the area. But as her 13 and 14-year-old daughters were crossing the street, she says they were approached by 3 Senatobia police officers.
An officer came out and told her to get her black on the sidewalk. She proceeded to get there, but turning around to ask him, what were you gonna do? Lock me up too?
Miller says that's when police officers assaulted and arrested her 13 and 14-year-old daughters. You can see in the cell phone video several officers standing over them on the ground.
One was body slammed to the ground. One was choked. I ran across. I was detained for trespassing.
Miller says this list of people shows they are not allowed to be near the properties owned by the Senatobia Housing Authority. As for her daughters, they were not on the list, but still charged with disorderly conduct and trespassing.
Her wrist may be broke, and the only thing they can give my baby is a bag of ice.
Miller says her 2 daughters have a court hearing tomorrow morning. I did reach out to the Senatobia Police Department for comment, but I'm still waiting for a response. In Senatobia, Sierra Jordan, Fox 13 News.
Well, just into the newsroom. In fact, Senatobia Police have released new information about what happened. The posted report is on its Facebook page. They say 1 juvenile was arrested for trespassing. 2 other juveniles were arrested for simple assault on a police officer, after they say the teen struck the police officer in the head multiple times.
I do want to remind every listening ear that you have every God-given right to defend yourself from unwarranted attacks. Now, I don't say that not understanding what could come with that. I just don't want the psychology of it to leave us thinking we don't have options, because I think that's what happens in a lot of cases, and I also think that's part of the scare tactics. They leave us thinking we have no other option but to bow down, and that's not the case. Many men and women have decided to stand up for themselves against unwarranted attacks, no matter how that turned out on the other side, and been very satisfied with their decision. So, like I said, I just want to remind us that we are not stuck with the only choice being for us to bow down. We can defend ourselves, and we have every God-given human right to defend ourselves against any unwarranted attack, no matter who the provocator may be. So don't forget that, man. And so we're not in the blind here, man. At the end, when they mentioned that the young teenage girls, preteens, were charged with assault, that's what led me to think that thought, man, because that's what happens in a lot of cases. Police actually assault people, and then they charge the people with assaulting them. And I know American government lets them get away with that, but like I said, that's that psychology. Every law isn't, a moral absolute. And if no one else realizes it, you need to realize it shouldn't paralyze your human rights. You know what I mean? So there you go. I was raised, man, in housing authority, man. I'll never forget it. I can tell you several names, man. One of them is, I remember fondly, my grandma, man. Crest Circle, man. Definitely Georgia boy. So I know a lot about, the housing authority life, even down to the trespasses and stuff. Now, what I can tell you about the housing authority from the inside out, my generation of growing up there, and I've seen several generations, man, and I assume it's still like this in a lot of ways. Maybe I'm wrong, I hope so. We don't know a lot about the laws, man. We just know police come through and they're the bad guys. And the reason we see them like that is because they never come through trying to assist. The only time we see cops is when they're there for crime, or they're riding through looking for crime, or maybe an emergency situation goes on. And I'm very, particular to say housing authority, because I know that doesn't just consist of black urban areas. Like, there are other areas where other races gather together in communities, and they experience the same thing. Like, we're not those neighborhoods where you see the cops coming through to play with the kids or try to teach anything. You literally don't see them until they're there to arrest someone, or they're there looking for crime, or, like I said, an emergency. And it automatically breeds an innate distrust and almost hate for law enforcement. You know what I mean? And it's because of the way that they present themselves. It's not, well, you got to think, when you're a kid growing up in that environment, and this is the only time we see these people, and we also hear stories from our elders about them. Yeah, it's going to breed a certain disposition toward them. And that's what you get in a lot of those areas. And what ends up happening is, a lot of that is only pushed to those demographics of people. It's never looked at like, okay, well, why do they feel like this about the American government agents? So I just wanted to present that perspective, man. While we get into that, I'm not saying which side may be right or wrong. I just can resonate with it because I literally grew up there, and we never see these guys until they show up being the bad guys. They could have came through and played with us like they do in other neighborhoods, came through and tried to educate us. They didn't do any of that. And so we developed resentment. And now you get to the point where you hear this mom admitting that, and I said 12 and 13. I don't know why I kept getting confused about their ages, but one of her 13 and 14-year-old, still very preteen daughters, said to one of the cops, what are you going to do? Arrest me too. You know what I mean? And a shooting, they're there for a shooting, so a lot is going on. I always try to give the cops the leeway of when an emergency, like real emergency situations, not car accidents where there's no victims, no shootings, no stabbings, nothing like that. But those real, red flag emergencies, they have to get those scenes under control. And I'm a huge fan of giving them whatever leeway they need to do that within reason, right? Within the law. So when they're dealing with a shooting and stuff, I don't know the particulars there, but it seemed just to be like something that they had contained, and they were telling the people around, hey, get out the way, and one of the young ladies mouthed out at them. Now, you can say from a parent and an adult perspective, you don't want your children talking to cops like that, and I wouldn't be upset with you about that. I'm just going to also bring to the table that just because children are children, it doesn't mean that they aren't still Americans, right? And they still have every constitutional right we do. And that's why I've been lately reiterating, it's very important not only for you to know your rights, but to make sure your children do as well. So in these situations, yes, you may have a kid that's mouthy, got a smart mouth, maybe even if it's an adult who has that type of responsibility, where I'm from, you'll get popped in your mouth. I don't know. It's a different world we live in now. But the government still has boundaries that they have to abide in, and Americans still have rights, like no matter what their ages are. So when you hear the mom admitting that, hey, this girl said, what are you going to do, arrest me too? No matter what you may think of her attitude or her willingness to say that to an adult or a law enforcement agent at her age, she's an American. She has a right to. She didn't break any law. Now, we have seen cops escalate situations like this with adults and try to tell adults that we can't exercise our constitutional rights as free Americans. It's extra to me a little flaky and upsetting when you're doing it to children, because now I'm thinking you're just really trying to be a bully, because you're not just trying to overstep the boundaries of your authority, you're also just trying to overpower people who you think might not be aware of their ability to respond to you and shut your ass down. So that just sets my antennas up a little more and sets me off a little more. And then we hear the mom say, I need to be clear, guys. Which one of these officers told her to get your, her racial epithet ASS back on or whatever she was at? Which one is? Because when I first looked at it, I thought I saw a black dude. And once again, not only am I I was raised in a housing authority area. I'm from Georgia, man, little southern country boy. I know that's how black people will talk to you. You'll talk to anybody, random kid walking down the sidewalk like that. Somebody from New York or one of these bigger cities might not understand it. We know, like, nah, that's just auntie southern. Even if it's not your auntie, white, black, Asian, if you're raised in one of those areas, we talk to each other like that, especially within the same race. You might, on certain occasions, see people who aren't of that race, the demographic that populates that area in majority, but they grew up around that, so they family, and so they may be able, even to say certain things that outsiders may not understand or be able to say. So like I say, first I thought I saw a black officer, but then when I researched this case and I realized, not only are y'all the same state, y'all are literally the same department that locked that 10-year-old boy up for peeing outside. And you didn't just lock him up. You then took him to court and actually penalized him legally. You gave him probation and a book report on Kobe Bryant, if the reports are correct. And praise God, this man had a mom. What dad at? I can't speak to that, negatively or positively. And no mention, right? He could be the greatest dad alive and just prefers to stay in the background. I don't know. But praise God, this kid had a mom and also some other adults, including, legal counsel, to say, man, ain't no way in hell we signing that. And they eventually got it thrown out, but they still took that 10-year-old child through all of that for peeing outside. A lot of grown men, including myself, and I bet some of them still do to this day. Makes me think it probably was one of them that told that baby to get her beat back over there. If so, I think you overstepped the boundaries, homie. What type of grown man bully kids? And you go down the road 2.5 hours, 55 South, and you got 6 freaking white boys, man, running up in the house I can't even say, like, it's crazy. Like, y'all weren't just on some cop abuse stuff. Y'all was on some BDSM, fulfilling fantasies type stuff, and it's not funny at all, because how do you shoot a man in his mouth for fun, homie? What the hell is going through your mind? We're going to probably end up profiling that case, man. If you research it, you'll find out that, hey, man, for all intents and purposes, everyone involved said one of the gentlemen at the house was there as a helper, like one of those house sitters and people that, help elderly or disabled people who just need someone around to assist them in things. And I forgot why the other guy was there as a friend or something, but there was literally nothing wrong. I mean, the cases, the guys now, they in Fed right now. I think they got like from 10 to 40 years between 6 cops. Nothing discriminatory came out about these 2 black men that they hunted, stalked down, and treated like animals because they were animals. And all this is happening right there in the radius. Like, it seems like Mississippi's still burning. And I said we might talk about the homie Sam Dobbins, man. He is crazy as I don't know what. I just cotton picking mine. But right now, all I'll say about the guy, man, is you need to just probably check into him, because at this point, you probably think I'm saying something that I'm not. And what Sam said may bring it more home for you. The homie said, he was telling his officers, and one of them was African-American, if you murder somebody in cold blood, don't worry about it. Come to me. Rewind the tape or research it yourself. I specifically put those quotes on the screen because this is what this black officer, Robert Lee Hooker, because I called him Robert Hood in the beginning. My apologies, my fine man. He recorded this chief saying all these horrible things, man. And he said a lot more horrible things. But like I say, just in case you're like, oh my God, what is he doing? I just listen to this. He told all of his officers, including an African-American,
I don't give a if you kill a with a cold blood.
Do it right.
Do you hear what I'm saying?
Yep.
I will articulate to fix the problem. And I'm the only man in the business here that's smart enough to do it, I promise you.
If you murder somebody in cold blood, find me. I know how to make it go away, and I'm the only one smart enough to do it. And I've done it for myself multiple times. I shot one man 119 times in the cornfield. I tell you the story about it, everybody knows. We might do a profile video on Mr. Dobbs and see what he's up to lately. They did get him out of there, man, and you know, city is being sued for that too, and they want the higher up fired there. If I called him the chief, he might have been something else, but hell, you was way too high up on the ladder to be confident saying the things you said, admitting that you did the things that you admitted to doing. I started this video last night, guys, man. It's the next day. I'm finishing it up now, adding the audio to it. And so when I did get home last night, I just accidentally, and I mean that word very literally, ended up watching a documentary on the Mexican government and in relation to the cartels. And I want to live further, so I'm not going to say a lot there. But I have to admit, it did give me a new perspective and appreciation for our government, even the police. But it also made me think, if this is the direction that the American government and its agents are trending in, then we may as well go ahead and start the war now, because what is happening to those citizens over there is almost disrespectful to say that it's atrocious, because it's much worse. Small, insignificant caveat. They always say I talk too much in the comments, man. I might as well prove them right. What does she mean when she said, I hope my daughters come home? Now, I did this video, and this is the one that I accidentally deleted the audio on, so I was blowed about it, and thank God I was able to come back to it because I wanted to profile it. But she mentioned that, and this was like maybe now going on a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, so I'm hoping that the children are home now. But that was like 6 or 7 days after the incident, so I'm just wondering, what does she mean? And like, how far did they take this in keeping those young girls in jail after the police assaulted them and then charged them with assault, much like they always do? They did it to the gentleman, and then where were we at? Ohio, when they helped his ex-girlfriend break into his home, beat him up, sent him to the hospital, and then charged him with 5 felonies. So like I say, this is happening. We're going to talk about that to end the video, but I was just curious, what did she mean by that? Because that was 6 days after the incident. Why would those young girls, who clearly, seemingly, obviously did not a damn thing but be who they were, and have the audacity to be Americans, at least one of them, when speaking to law enforcement agents who their parents pay, and they have every American right to. So she also mentioned one of the girls having a broken wrist, and she just wanted them home. And it just occurs to me this, man. I already did my spiel about giving, cops much leeway and having to secure emergency situations. For me, if any one of you can do this, help me out here. And I'm looking at it from me being an adult in that situation, me being a cop in that situation, and my child being in that situation. I see absolutely no reason for adults, man or woman, to be roughly and aggressively handling children, especially to the point where they have broken bones, if those children are not violently assaulting someone else or causing danger or victimizing someone else in a violent way. Whether they're your children or they belong to someone else, man. You can't just go around beating on children. It's not how life works. And if you do that, there are penalties, legal and otherwise. And since we know legally you guys are qualified for absolute immunity, like I said, guys, we just have to not allow the psychology to paralyze us into believing that we don't have access to our basic human rights, including self-defense. Because why does one of these babies have a broken wrist or a broken anything? And like, if that was your baby, or even if that was one of those officers' babies, I think most of us know how we would at least prefer to respond to that. So that was very upsetting to hear, along with the fact that you guys charge these girls with assault. These are kids, and yes, like I said, I'm from the inner city, and you're not supposed to say these things, but when girls are a certain type of girl, if they have that ferocious and talk back attitude, whether they should be doing it or should not, they have a right to speak up for themselves, and sometimes they need to shut the hell up. We all know these things. But if they have that attitude, then yes, if you attack them physically, they're going to fight back. So then now you feel like you're in the right, so you have to exert more force. I mean, it's just one more show of American irresponsibility with these government agents. You escalated that situation, because we can jump over to you saying, the girls shouldn't be there. I don't know if the people are aware that even though they may own the housing authority to trespass people from it legally, they don't own public sidewalks. I would have to look into that to see how far it goes, because like I say, we come from those environments, but we're not necessarily educated on anything but knowing that these people who present themselves as the bad guys are. But once we get to the documents, the reporter holds it up and makes it clear that these young ladies' names, the 13 and 14-year-old sisters that you guys gang assaulted, their names aren't on the list. So there's no legal premise for you to tell them they don't have a right to be there, sir. So things are already way shaky legally, which is the only authority you have, before you group of grown-ass men gang beat these little girls up and charge them with assaulting you, before you drag them off in front of their loving mother like animals. And you're the same department who locked a 10-year-old boy up for peeing outside, took him to court, gave him probation, and put him on papers. Are y'all the same ones that shot Tamir Rice? Am I race baiting, or am I going exactly where Senatobia Police Department, Mississippi, and American government agents' terrorist intentions are pointing? I think that's a fair question. And before I answer it, I do want to say this. I never understood how parents expect parents to give up on their children, to not feel about their children the same way you feel about yours. Like, you might look at somebody and see nothing but trash and refuse, but somebody is going to look at that trash and refuse and see their child the same way you look at your children and see yours. Now, I know there are parents who don't feel what is considered like the natural affection for their kids, but in my experience, they are by far the minority, and most parents love their children unconditionally. And even when they're willing to hold their children accountable, that love doesn't change. I'm just hopefully setting the stage for us to get past any social biases we may have as we consider these situations, and remind us that no matter what we may see when we see someone in any particular situation, someone can look into that same situation and see their child and feel the same way you would feel if you looked into it and saw yours there, if you were in the loving majority. Now, I asked the question because I am Mr. Elephant in the room, and I think it's absolutely fair. Am I race baiting, or am I following exactly where these terrorist intentions are pointing? Guess who's in a perfect position to answer that question? Listen, man, by no means am I trying to make this a race thing. That was back when we wouldn't deal with it. When America petted this monster, cheered it on, told the Negroes it was terrorizing, that they were playing victim and making things up because no such monster existed. Now it has a taste for more than just Negroes and Negro supporter flavored terror treats. America got two options from my perspective: kill its pet monster, or pray those lies it's been trying to sell us Negroes about these domestic terrorists are true. Thank you if you made it this far. If you liked the video, feel free to hit that thumbs up button. I greatly appreciate it. If you care to go a little further than that, maybe even subscribe, hit the notification bell. Check out a few of the other videos on the channel. Either way, y'all be safe.
Did you think you were going to survive that night, Michael?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I'm still going through pain right now. My whole face numb, my mouth hurting right now as we speak.
I used to think America was the problem, so I was boastful, like, I'm not American, man. I'm not American, not America. But then I realized it's not America that's the problem. It's these pretenders that have to go. Goon squads, Senatobia Police Departments, Mississippi, New York, Florida, Georgia, New Mexico, Ohio. All these rogue government agents, domestic terrorists. They're the ones declaring war on the American public, the real Americans, making everybody, including some of us, look at America crazy. And they're not just coming for defenseless black kids and men in Mississippi. They have a very colorful tasted terror treats. Sleep on it if you want to. America got two options from my perspective: kill its pet monster, or pray those lies it's been trying to sell us Negroes about these domestic terrorists are true.